really enjoyed our previous conversation when you introduced us to the Gilly Salmon model and the importance at the start of an online course of socializing. And I learned a lot from that conversation about getting the students together, the importance of giving them time and space. But my concern, I suppose, would be, so how long, and at what point, once some socializing has taken place, would we get them into the actual assignment and what's actually going to be happening during the course?
Yeah, thank you, Steve. My opinion is that the assignments are the key, and that also, I think, helps us with what you call socialization. I would call it socialization at the very beginning of the course when you get to know each other better. But under the umbrella of socialization, we then move on to collaboration, which is dialogue and working on the same project together. And that also should always have the element of personal experience and personal meaning for all the participants. And that has to be written in the assignment. But there's another thing that I think you expressed the concern earlier about students maybe just, continuing socializing, taking all the time of learning, which is why when you are designing the assignments, you need to really carefully think about how large this course is, how many credits or how many in student hours, and what they can be expected to do within that time frame, and how big part of that time goes to reflection and navigation online and that sort of thing. And this is what I'd like to talk about with you today. Look at some examples.
That would be great. From my own experience, I know that students are really keen to know what's it all about. Yeah, tell us what we've got to do, and that's the thing that's really important for them to actually know. So how do you, and you mentioned about design, so how do you design this into to the course that you've created?
Yeah, I'll show you a couple of examples, and also I think it helps students manage their own time. Now let me show you a table which I used to make at the beginning of the course design. I used to give it to the students as well, but it's hard to maintain, so I don't give it to the students anymore. This is for a different course from what we looked last time, but this is a 5-credit course, which in Finland 1 credit is 26.7 hours of student work. So 5 credits course is about 133 hours together of study time. So this is what I tend to do at the beginning of the new course. Here are the weeks. This is just 1 week. I think about how much time they need for different things, like introduction to the key concepts is a video, 15 minutes. And then they all look at the learning objectives and assessment, go through the material at the beginning of the Moodle course, 1 hour. Then reading set books. What is policy? This is an educational policy and practice course, 8 hours for the set reading. And then they have an assignment to start following the media discussion on education policy in their own context. I thought that they might spend 5 hours, like it's not 1 day, but during the week, 5 hours of following the media discussion. And then reflection is here visible so that they can see that, okay, 3 hours is for reflection. On this course, actually, they are using a learning diary or learning journal. So this would be the reflections in the learning journal. And this is the book they've given. This is a 2-week period. This is how I have sort of planned how much time they need for all these activities. And then when you write the instruction, you put it in the time. I used to have this visible for the students, but it proved very difficult because in the Moodle they have they have deadlines, and if I change something in an assignment in Moodle, I forgot to change it here.
Yeah, I personally would like to share with them, but I understand what you say. Actually managing that process of sharing information with the students can be a real challenge. What jumped off the page at me was the time you set aside for reflection, and that you've been explicit about the fact that you are going to need to reflect on this, and that's something that maybe certainly as far as I'm concerned I've not really built in, although I asked them to, and I require them to, but I don't emphasize it, and maybe I don't build that into my own design. The other thing that I'm particularly interested in, and a question I would ask you about, would be you identified the learning objectives quite early on, understandably. How frequently in that process, even in a relatively short course like this, would you come back to those learning objectives and talk to them with the students?
Very good question again, Steve. In every assignment. Let me show you now a different assignment. This is from the same course we did last time. Here we are now in the same course that we were in the first video. And now we are looking at learning environments. The unit for learning environments takes 2 weeks. And here they get this picture about the different aspects of learning environments. And let's look at the assignment here. This is one thing I say now that I remember, that it's really difficult to write these instructions because you need to be clear enough, but you shouldn't be too long. Like this now looks a bit long because students get tired of reading. They don't should be clear, but it's very difficult to make short and clear instructions that everybody will understand in the same way. I found a good layout for assignment, that you have the instructions here first what to do, and if we look at them quickly, they need to find one of them needs to be peer-reviewed articles about learning environments once they have decided what aspect of learning environment they are interested in, pedagogical, technological, social, or whatever. And then since they now understand the learning theories, they can analyze the learning environments through this theoretical lens and reading more about them as well. Before we asked them to visit different learning environments, but now they analyze their own learning environment where they are teaching or learning based on these theories. And then this is the reflection part. They'll share their readings and observations in a small group. This is a live tutorial where the teacher will be joining the small group. And then after these instructions, we have the learning objective related to this assignment. This would be one of the learning objectives given at the beginning of the course. And this is, you will be able to describe and evaluate various learning environments with regard to how they support learning. And then we have the time here from the big framework that was designed at the beginning. So the time for this whole thing is 18 hours, and then the deadline. And this helps the students. I often tell the students at the beginning of the course that this time is there for them also to manage their own time, that they don't start reading too much, for example. Because when they get excited, they might read 5 articles, and then they won't have time for reflection or making the visuals.
Or even the key word in there, I think that I would pick up on the learning objective, that it's about not just describing the learning environments, but actually evaluating the learning environments, and the opportunity there for the critical thinking coming in, and also the connecting with the learning theories that they've read as well to go alongside this. I think keeping that learning objective, particularly when it's written here, if you don't mind me saying so, I think it's been written in a style that they can engage with. And one of the issues I have with learning objectives is actually, are they written in a way that students can access them? Are they written for the students, or are they written for the academic? And I think making sure that they're written in a style that is makes them accessible to the students, you're going to get better results in terms of meeting those learning objectives if they can understand what they're reading.
So this is the kind of layout of the assignment that I find works well. And then I'd like to show you where this time thinking is based on. A professor from University of Oulu, together with his colleagues, has researched this topic, how much time different functions take online, and written a little booklet about it. So what is time for example? They need time to read, watch videos, write, collaborate, all of this, and time to think. And that's why the time for reflection is transparent there, and it should be included in the course design.
Yeah.
And he says the allocation of time is an effective act of teaching. But what takes time? Online, accessing the learning management system itself takes time. You have to make many clicks to get there, navigate to the right place, use the different kinds of programs. You may have technical problems with the internet and the equipment, reading instructions and trying to understand the instructions and maybe asking for clarification and reading teachers' feedback. So a lot of time, just something that is not the kind of learning the content yet.
Yeah.
Collaboration with peers and peer feedback. Communication by writing takes a lot of time. And information search and accessing the set materials, the different links that get you to the books. And breaks, because you can have screen fatigue if you are just, staring the screen. So breaks also should be sort of taken into account. Well, it depends obviously on the individual, but they have calculated how much time, and this I find really useful when I'm planning a course. Written work, if you, for example, write in a discussion forum, 100 words can take 1 hour.
Yeah.
I think discussion board or discussion forum text is not that time consuming because it doesn't have to be so formal. But if your assignment asks them to write, for example, a blog post, or if it's an essay, so 100 words takes 1 hour.
Yeah.
And usually the written task is much longer, like 400, 800 words. If you ask them to make a visual presentation, it can take from 4 to 8 hours, especially if they need to find information for it. And I actually measured my own time. I didn't need to find any information. It still took me 3 hours to make it look nice. Reading the set materials, 100 pages takes 20 hours. And if it's foreign language and more demanding text, it takes 30 hours to read 100 pages. So this I find really useful to keep in mind.
I couldn't agree more, Cisco. I'd have to add one more onto that list of times, and that is going down a rabbit hole when you find something particularly interesting online. And it's been interesting. I've been having discussions with my own students about this. And although I must say that I find that a sort of reassuring that they are engaging with the content if it draws them into something that they find really interesting and they pursue it. But we have many discussions about the time that's spent going down rabbit holes. But I'd really not thought about the emphasis to place on it as you've done there into the design process. So that's great. Thank you. What a great title.
Yeah, and you can find it online. That's basically, I think, what I wanted to say about writing assignments. And I always find that students have questions, whether it's too short, that doesn't say enough, or they always somebody misunderstands, even if you try to be as clear as possible. So they read it quickly and they have a set idea what it might be, and they do like that.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Cisco. I really, again, as ever, something else for us to think about, and to think about the importance of building time in and being explicit about how much time is going to be needed and what it's needed to be spent on. So that's fantastic. Thank you.